Right, okay, we're live.
Yes.
Hi, Jeff, how you doing?
Greatly, how are you?
Yeah, good to see you again, and it's a pleasure holding this program development session with you this morning. Hope you're well there in Arizona. And
yep,
yeah,
we'll cool off.
Yeah, good. So I'm calling in from Brazil, in southern Brazil. I'm technically based in Jakarta, Indonesia, but I was actually in Brazil visiting some football club foundations here when COVID-19 severely affected Asia and Europe, and I decided to bunker down here and thinking that things would be okay and go back to Asia, but then obviously the pandemic has severely affected the whole of the world now. So still bunkering down here, waiting for for the situation to improve, and then hopefully can go back to Asia at some point early next year. So so should we start off with an introduction?
Yeah, Lee, why don't you tell us about maybe your program and what you've developed over time, because you hold rank on me since your program's been around longer than mine.
Yeah, sure. So just bring up a slide. So yeah, it's been an incredible journey over the last 19 years. Just give you some background on myself. I'm Lee Hawkins. I'm the founder of the ASA Foundation. My background is football. In the UK, we call it football. You guys call it soccer. And I do a lot of work with the US, so I sometimes call it soccer. I bounce between the two, soccer and football. So my background's soccer, and my family's been involved with soccer for a number of years. You know, my great uncle was the captain of Portsmouth Football Club in the 1950s. So, you know, our family goes back to the 1950s with football, and I was at Southampton Football Club at the academy there as a trainee in the late 80s in the same development centre as Alan Shearer, Matthew Letitia, Kevin Phillips, Darren Eady, Jamie Curitan. So I was there for a number of years, and so soccer's always been my passion. And I was actually out in Indonesia back in 2001 doing some soft skills development. I set up ASA as a hobby, and it was just working with schools and communities at the local grassroots level. And then one day I met the country director of Church World Service, Maurice Bloom, who was a fanatical Ajax fan, and he said, "Lee, let's combine the soccer coaching with some education." So we set up a health and nutrition development program for street kids that was massively successful, and then we moved on to HIV/AIDS awareness on a program called SCORE, working with street kids in urban areas of Indonesia, in Jakarta. And that's how ASA Foundation started. We then secured a project with the Indonesian government in Sakayu in South Sumatra to set up an elite soccer and life skills and health development center for vulnerable youth and young adults in South Sumatra. That was an 18-month contract, and that development center is still running today. It's left a real legacy there. And while I was in South Sumatra, the tsunami hit Aceh, Boxing Day 2004. So we ended up doing lots of relief work in Aceh with UNICEF, running trauma relief clinics. Then we moved on to peace building and working with people with disabilities across Aceh. We spent 5 years in Aceh. And then the earthquake struck Yogyakarta in 2006. So we ended up doing lots of relief work there on disaster risk reduction, life skills, health, trauma relief, with Mercy Corps, with Muslim Aid, British Council. We had an English language program there, which was with British Council and Portsmouth Football Club. So that's how ASA Foundation evolved into not just a non-profit foundation across Indonesia, but over the last 10 years, We've worked across Thailand, Philippines, Malaysia, Cambodia. We also held an HIV/AIDS awareness program in Bangladesh with UNICEF, which was using cricket as the vehicle to educate and empower vulnerable youth and young adults on HIV/AIDS awareness. So ASA Foundation works at the local grassroots level. We work with local communities, local schools. We're supported by the Ministry of Education, Youth and Sports. And we are using sport as a tool, the power of sport to educate and empower vulnerable youth and young adults. We have a massive focus on gender equality. Yeah, we're looking to educate them on a whole list of education topics, which I've got up on the slides there, such as peace, tolerance, conflict resolution, gender equality, women empowerment, circular economy and waste management, life skills, community capacity building, DRR, inclusive education and sports. We do a lot of work with people with and without disabilities, financial literacy and numeracy and STEM. So these are some of our hottest topics. We've also in the past done a lot of HIV/AIDS awareness. That was actually, we don't do so much of that now, but we have done in the past. But yeah, it's been a wonderful journey. You know, we work a lot with the UN agencies. We're part of the UNESCO Task Force for Sports for Development. We are working with the US Embassy on conflict resolution, peace, tolerance. We've done a lot of work in conflict areas. I mentioned Aceh earlier. We've also worked with them across Java, Maluku's, Papua in Indonesia. We've had USAID programs in Aceh and Central Sulawesi for peace education. We've also been working with the US Embassy in some conflict zones, such as the deep south of Thailand, in Hat Yai, Songkhla, Patani, Yala, Narathiwat. And then we moved up into Mindanao in the Philippines, and also on western eastern coasts of Malaysia. So peace education has been one of our, one of our main topics. We've been working with UNICEF on trauma relief, as I mentioned earlier, in Aceh, and we've done a lot of work on HIV/AIDS awareness in Papua, and more recently on inclusive education and sports, working with people with and without disabilities. We've also been working with the US Embassy on disabilities programs, working in West Java in Indonesia, in Subang, and also in Khon Kaen in Thailand, in the northeast there. We've been working a lot with the private sector, Coca-Cola Amatil, on community capacity building programs. We've got it's just come up to 10 years now, working in communities there. Each year we work in 10 communities across Indonesia. We've worked with Starbucks as well on life skills and health. We've been working with, we've got a program at the moment with Caterpillar Foundation, which is a financial literacy and numeracy program, working with vulnerable youth in schools in West Java. We've been working with the FIFA Foundation on conflict resolution, gender equality, and we're just kicking off a new program, which is a prevention of violence against women and girls program, again in Java in Indonesia. We've been working with FC Barcelona Foundation. We are the regional partner of the FC Barcelona Foundation. For Indonesia, we've been working on an inclusive education and social intervention program with them. We've worked with Liverpool Football Club in Indonesia on health and life skills development, and we brought out Ian Rush for those programs, who's a legend. We've also been fortunate enough to bring out a number of coaches and former stars, legends. We brought out LA Galaxy and David Beckham for our financial literacy program with Permata Bank in Jakarta. We've had US soccer stars come out. So Tiffany and Tim Sahayadak and Eddie Lewis have come out to visit our conflict resolution programs in Indonesia. We had Dr. Becky Clark, who is a deaf former gold medalist, a volleyball Olympian. So she came out to visit our inclusive education program in Khon Kaen in Thailand last year and fell in love with the ASA programs, and she's now a global ambassador for ASA and our programs there. So we're going to be doing more work with Dr. Becky, which is fantastic. We also brought out Manchester United and Manchester City coaches since 2008 to Indonesia and Cambodia, and we brought out a Manchester United coach for our gender equality program in Cambodia last year in Phnom Penh, which was fantastic. And we're working a lot with girls on gender equality through football. So yeah, it's just been a fantastic experience running these programs. And we've also been fortunate enough to send a number of our talented teachers, coaches, students overseas for scholarship programs to the US, to UK, to Germany, and many years to Australia. So they've taken part in college and university education and sports coaching development programs, which have been inspiring programs and life-changing for these individuals. So yeah, it's been fantastic, and you know, obviously very rewarding that we can reach out across Southeast Asia with our programs and also have the opportunity to send them to the US, to Europe and Australia. So over to you then, Jeff, and give us an introduction on STEM sports. So also I'd like to add that, you know, what I found over the years that, and I mentioned that in our Asia forum yesterday, is that I found that some partners often find it difficult to understand how you can combine education and sports and use sports as a vehicle to empower youth and young adults, and especially on the subjects of financial literacy and numeracy and STEM. You know, we've been lucky enough to work with Permata Bank, DBS Bank, and more recently with Caterpillar Foundation. But I found that, you know, historically, some partners have found it difficult to understand the link between financial literacy, numeracy, and mathematics with sports, and how we can educate and empower people. So it'll be wonderful to find out, Jeff, a bit more about your STEM sports and your initiatives, and how you're using sports as a vehicle to educate youth on STEM.
Yeah, you bet. No, we run into that too. We sometimes get that kind of perplexed look when people see our name and they're trying to understand how the two work, you know, and how are they unified for that end result, that objective of teaching children. So that's what we are. We're a STEM education company that happens to use sports as the means in real life application to make those breakthroughs with young students. So I'm going to share my screen, and I thought, what better way to have us tell our story than I'm going to utilize a video. Otherwise, I might botch it. So hang in there for a little over 2 minutes. This is actually a pretty quick mover.
STEM sports provides standardized supplemental curriculum on STEM disciplines
Yeah, so that does it pretty well in a nutshell, and we're very pleased that our curriculum is throughout the United States in classrooms, after-school programs, and in camp settings, though the camp setting obviously was pretty well devastated this past summer due to COVID. I'm going to share another quick screen here, see if I can toggle over really fast. Just to give it a little bit more of an explainer, especially about how this was really developed and how it was begun. So give me 1 second here. There we go. So, moving right. Okay. Yeah, so and again, in a nutshell, that's what we are. We're a curriculum company. We happen to use sports to teach STEM. There's science behind everything. We try to establish that early on, so we get the children in the same frame that a teacher wants them to be in to understand their science all around them, which includes sports. What happened was it actually goes kind of way back even to 2013, and what had happened was USA BMX, an Olympic sport actually based here. I'm here in Arizona, and here they're in a suburb here. They were looking to really kind of grow their sport and establish get more children involved. And in that, they sought out an education curriculum, and one out of that was STEM BMX, and they marketed it to school districts all across the U.S. where a track was within maybe the school district's area. So to understand the BMX model, they have track owners, if you will, almost like franchisees that run tracks, engage, and sign up kids as members to ride their bikes at their tracks. And that's their kind of grassroots method of getting them more involved into the sport and then into competitions, et cetera. And so when they implemented the STEM BMX curriculum and then started selling it in school districts all across the country, again, where tracks were located, they actually, they were onto something. They had very great success at that point. STEM Sports, the company, hadn't even been invented or created yet at that time. And that didn't actually happen until 2016 when we realized, if that's an NGO or a nonprofit that can kind of basically get behind the curriculum, why don't we create basketball and talk to the USA Basketballs of the world, et cetera. So basketball and volleyball came out. There actually was, there wasn't an affiliation with basketball or USA Basketball for that matter. But when volleyball came out, there was an affiliation with USA Volleyball. Unfortunately, that's no longer. That's okay. The curriculum still lives and it's still implemented in lots of different places. But that's really kind of where the program was developed, was with that BMX program. Today, it's BMX's property that we actually get to offer as well. And they're having great success, and they've developed some other STEM programs out of that, track building, where kids get to model a track. And if it's successful in its model, they have like a little kind of a soft competition where a winning track actually winds up getting built. It's a phenomenal program. They also have a reading program. So as I mentioned, STEM and volleyball and STEM basketball followed. And this thing wants to behave. Slow for some reason. There we go. Soccer, football, and then a multi-sport, which combined all those ball sports. And it's one of our more popular kits, was launched in 2017. I always put this in there that we received the trademark for our name in 2018. It was quite a surprise that our attorneys didn't think that was going to actually be possible. But we got it, and that means it's a lot of responsibility for us to make sure that we uphold, what we're truly here for, and that is to educate youth. And I would back up one step. It's really important to understand what STEM is all about. STEM was born 20 plus years ago between the U.S. Department of Education as well as the National Science Foundation, when the reality struck that there are going to be so many jobs waiting for young students when they leave their education in their educational careers to enter the workforce, that they needed STEM skills early on so they'd be better prepared for all those jobs that be waiting for them. So we were very grounded in that. We understand that's exactly what STEM is all about. And again, I'll keep repeating it. We just happen to use sports as that application. So it's very important to understand that we're trying to better youth so that they're better prepared for a STEM workforce job. And there's going to be hundreds and millions of these jobs. And in fact, the numbers are showing that there won't be enough humans to fill those roles. So we've got a tall task in front of us, all of our STEM education companies. We have a licensing agreement with Skyhawks Sports Academy, and they're in about almost 25 states throughout the U.S. They're also growing internationally with franchise opportunities overseas, and they've got a license to use our curriculum. And basically, if they're already promoting a class that's for basketball and basketball skills and just to teach the game, they can pair that with STEM and STEM basketball, and it makes a more robust experience for students that go through that program. So we're very proud of that. We just renewed with them for 2 years, so that's going to grow even greater. And certainly COVID, we'll talk a little bit more about that after Lee speaks about his pivots and adaptations, and I'll come back and talk more about that as it does involve Skyhawks. We're starting to grow internationally and have lots of interest overseas. We were in Morocco a year ago for a good week and kind of breaking out a program out there with Tibu, an NGO there that uses basketball. We technically have pilots, even though the COVID has actually stalled some of these pilots, but materials are in Australia, Japan, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and soon to be in Ecuador. And we've got another effort to kind of delve deeper into the Middle East beyond Saudi Arabia. And currently, actually, I need to update that. We're in 49 states. Rhode Island, we're looking for you to adapt some STEM sports curriculum soon. And as I mentioned before, there's where the curriculum is at. We just released a multi-sport for kindergarten, first and second grades. And then our STEM golf program just came out. We're proud of some partnerships there with Short Golf, a UK-based company that provides children's-sized clubs, beginner clubs that are safe and work very well for some of the science that we put the kids through, as well as Callaway Golf. And in more like 21, we'll definitely be breaking out baseball and softball, hockey, lacrosse, and tennis are coming as well. So I think with that, I'm going to kick it back to Lee and maybe explore some more aspects of ASA, and then I'll come back after that.
Great, Jeff. Thanks for that introduction. And I know that we previously spoke about your partnership with Skyhawks, and I believe they also have a presence in Southeast Asia. So I'd be very, very interested to meet them when I'm next in Southeast Asia, whenever that will be. Hopefully as soon as possible. But I'd be delighted to meet up with them. So
yeah, there's a franchisee in Indonesia. Yep. Right.
Okay. I'll take you through a bit more of background now on the ASA Foundation program development and how we put our programs together. Okay. So basically, I've just got up on the screen an example, just one of our programs, which is a prevention of violence against women and girls program, which we ran across Java in Indonesia with UN Women last year. The ASA Foundation head office is in Jakarta, in Java in Indonesia, but we have developed a network of trainers across Indonesia, from Aceh all the way across to Papua, over the last 19 years through our programs. We also have representative teams in Bangkok and Khon Kaen in Thailand, KL and Sabah in Malaysia, Phnom Penh and Sihanoukville in Cambodia, and Manila and Mindanao in the Philippines. Okay, so we have the capacity to run our programs across Southeast Asia. The way that we work is that ASA Foundation is an on-the-ground implementer. Okay, so we're working with UN agencies, we're working with private sector, international NGOs, international donors. As I mentioned earlier, we work with soccer clubs, and we've also done some work with NBA cares as well, not just soccer, but we focus on other sports like yourself, Jeff. We're using sports such as soccer, basketball, volleyball, handball, rugby, cricket, marathon running as the vehicle to educate and empower, empowering vulnerable youth and young adults in urban and rural areas. And we reach out to youth and young adults in some pretty remote areas as well. You know, we've worked in places such as in Papua in Indonesia, in the highlands there, which is difficult to access, running our programs. So yeah, the way we work is that we'll be approached by a partner to run a program. I'll say, okay, you know, where would you like to work? You know, where's your target location? Who are your target beneficiaries? You know, is it a community-based program? Is it a schools-based program? And they'll say, okay, Lee, we want to work in, say, I don't know, maybe Aceh or Khon Kaen in Thailand. And then ASA will conduct all the baseline studies, the needs assessments. We'll identify which sports that the youth and young adults enjoy playing. In Indonesia, it's always soccer for the boys, basketball, volleyball for the girls. In Thailand, it's normally volleyball and soccer. In Malaysia, it's basketball and soccer. In Cambodia, the girls love playing soccer. So soccer is #1 in Cambodia. And what we say to our partners is, you know, what education topic would you like us to focus on? So, for example, with UNICEF, we've done a lot of HIV/AIDS awareness and inclusive education. With the US Embassy, a lot of conflict resolution. Similarly, with USAID, we've done a lot of conflict resolution and peace building there. So it all depends on what our partners' key focus is in terms of the education. Obviously, with UN Women, it's gender-based. It's a lot of gender equality, women empowerment, of violence, prevention of violence against women and girls. So once we receive, you know, all the requirements, the programming requirements from the partners, and we always say to our partners, how much funding do you have? I never go to partners with budgets. I say, okay, how much funding do you have? They'll say, okay, Lee, we've got X amount of funding. And then I will go away and develop a program which is based on our partners' program requirements and their funding allocation. Okay, it could be a small pot of money or it could be a large pot of funding. You know, we're very flexible on that. So I will go away and develop a program. Our ASA Foundation, education and empowerment through sports programs follow the same methodology. Okay, so you know, as I mentioned, you know, we'll start off with baseline studies and needs assessments. We'll set up socialization activities to identify and screen and select our target schools, our target communities, our target teachers, youth that we're going to be working with on the programs. And we work on that with the Ministry of Education and Sports. So they'll support us, they'll recommend schools, communities, teachers, youth that they'd like us to work with. And then we'll go through a screening process where we'll conduct interviews, surveys, we'll receive CVs from the teachers. We'll go through a screening process to select the teachers and local coaches that we feel have the capacity to run our programs on a long-term sustainable basis and to leave a legacy in our target areas. So that's the screening process is obviously very, very important. Okay, so once we've identified and screened and selected our schools, our communities, our teacher and coach beneficiaries, we will then host the Training a Trainer Master Training Program at a school or a sports complex in the target location, obviously. We will then invite our teacher and coach beneficiaries to participate on a 3-day Train the Trainer Master Training Program. Often we'll actually set up guest houses so they can live on site very close to the facilities, which works well because sometimes you've got teachers and coaches who live very far away from the training training venue. Okay, they're scattered around, so it's good to have everyone close by, and it means that everyone arrives on time and we can kick off the program efficiently. So yeah, once we've got everyone at the training center, we have obviously my local trainers. I have local trainers across Southeast Asia, and I develop the curriculums. So once I have the you know, all the programming requirements from the partner, through my experience with working with the UN, with USAID, US government, football clubs and sports associations, I've developed a curriculum. Different curriculums, which using sport as the vehicle, as you pointed out, Jeff, earlier, with soccer, with basketball, with volleyball, and marathon running and rugby. I've developed these curriculums to use sport as the vehicle to educate and empower people on the the menu of programs that I gave to you earlier. Okay, so. In the case of UN Women here, this program was prevention of violence against girls and women, working on a schools program. So I developed the curriculum. We then translated it into the local language. And my local master trainers from Jakarta, and also this program here was in Malang. I also employ some of our trainer beneficiaries, our leading beneficiaries that have worked on our program over the last 19 years. So I've got this network of trainers. So if we have a new program, I'll employ some of our talented beneficiaries. So we provide work opportunities. So they will actually, they will run the program for me. I'll be on site to conduct all the monitoring evaluation. As you can see here, you know, we run the introduction and then an icebreaker to get the beneficiaries to introduce themselves. We'll then conduct some pre-testing, theory testing in the classroom, which is before we've even started the program. So that's how we measure the impact, through our theory testing and practical assessments. So we'll start off with the pre-testing in the classroom, and then we'll go into our blended learning solution. So the way that we run our programs, our methodology, is that we use a blended learning solution. So our programs are classroom based. We run participatory learning workshops through the classroom, and then we deliver the key education messages through the sports coaching as edu sports modules. Okay, so for example, they'll be learning about prevention of violence against women and girls, gender equality, life skills, tolerance, peace in the classroom, and then we'll go outside and we'll run the key messages through the sports coaching. So it's a blended learning solution. It's fun, it's intuitive, and we've found that the impact has been very high over the last 19 years. It's just so you can see that we're doing edu sports modules. We're also drawing pictures and maps detailing the gender equality, the life skills, education, holding workshops both in the classroom and then going outside running the edu sports modules. If there's rain, then we'll go inside and run the education, the edu sports module inside. Sometimes rain stops play outdoors, so we go inside. Okay,
Lee,
so these will run. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was going to ask, what age do you guys target?
Okay, so yeah, we again, it depends on our partners. We've had some partners that wanted to work on health and nutrition with mothers and infants. We've had programs in kindergartens, primary school, middle school, and senior high school. So it all depends on our partners, really. With the US Embassy, we work with senior high schools. With Coca-Cola Amatil, again, it's senior high, some junior high. With our Starbucks program, again, it was senior high. With our Caterpillar Foundation program, which is financial literacy and numeracy. We're working with elementary school kids. So it all depends on our partner. This UN Women program was working with junior high and senior high school teachers and students. Okay, so we were working with 90 teachers across 3 locations in Bogor in West Java, and in East Java was Malang and Pamakassam in Madura. So we focused on 90 school teachers, and it reached out to over 16,000 boys and girls. And we had 49% female. So as I mentioned earlier, gender equality is one of our main pillars, and we attempt to engage as many female teachers, community members and youth in our programs as possible. So our main focus is always 50% male, 50% female. And we've done pretty well through our programs. You know, we always manage to get, say, 40, 45%, sometimes 48, 47, 49% females engaged in our program. In one of our programs, the US Embassy program, which was, it was called Empower Run. It was very, very similar to, I think, Girls on the Run in the US. And it was all about getting girls into marathon running, teaching them life skills, health, body awareness, nutrition, hygiene, sanitation, education through marathon running. That program was 100% females. And we were working on that program across Sumatra and Java in Indonesia. So, yeah, one of our main pillars is gender equality. So yeah, these training a trainer programs, they run for 3 days. We conduct theory testing, practical assessments, so pre-testing, midterm testing, post-testing, practical assessments. Then we conduct interviews and surveys to get the feedback from the teachers, to find out their plans for our program, because these teachers are responsible for then going back into the schools and the communities and running our program on a weekly basis. Okay, so that's our sustainability strategy and how we leave a legacy in our target areas, is to work at the local grassroots level with local teachers, local community coaches, to run, you know, to build their capacity to become ASA master trainers, to run our program in schools and communities on a weekly basis. And then ASA conducts all the monitoring and evaluation on a weekly basis. We set up Facebook pages, WhatsApp and line forums. We get all our teachers to send us programming footage, their training data, you know, all their success stories via these forums. So we can track our programs on a weekly basis. So we actually have the capacity to monitor and evaluate and provide reporting to our partners on a weekly basis. For the FC Barcelona Foundation program in Indonesia, we were reporting to them on a weekly basis. So our monitoring evaluation process is very strong. You know, we obviously, we then go back into the schools and communities and run our, you know, and run monitoring evaluation, on-site monitoring evaluation on a monthly basis. Okay, so our beneficiaries will report to us on a weekly basis through the forums, through the Facebook, WhatsApp, line forums, and then we will actually go back into the schools and communities and monitor and evaluate our programs face to face with the teacher, beneficiaries, our youth as well, on a monthly basis. So it works really, really well. Obviously with COVID, we haven't been able to do that, and we'll go into that in a moment, and I'll go into a bit more about what we've done to mitigate the issues around COVID-19. But yeah, that's basically how we run our programs, and we set up opening ceremonies, closing events with our partners where we get the media involved. We've been on CNN, Indonesia television with our FC Barcelona Foundation program. We've been, you know, in all the local newspapers, and in the case of the US Embassy programs, we've had the ambassadors, the DCMs, you know, join our programs, and they've interacted with the kids and played soccer and basketball, and yeah, just amazing opportunities for for the youth and the teachers and community members to get involved and meet, you know, the US Embassy ambassador. And we, as I mentioned earlier, we brought across a number of sports legends and coaches to get involved with these programs. And yeah, these are life-changing and inspiring experiences for these vulnerable youth and young adults that we work with. So yeah, it's been a wonderful journey. And over to you, Jeff. Can you tell us a bit more about your STEM sports and your program development?
Yeah, that's great work that you guys are doing there for sure. And you always have to make the note like, well, unfortunately it's needed, but it's needed, and that's great that you're up for the cause. I'll jump in a little bit more with what we're doing, and a little more of a breakdown. As Lee, you posed earlier, the question of how do you do these two things together? How do you bring an education and certainly the STEM into sports? And before I get into the slide that I just pulled up, I thought I'd give some examples of simple examples to understand how we kind of interrelate and connect these dots. So often what I use as an example is if a teacher was in front of a classroom of, say, 5th grade students, and in fact, put yourself in there as a 5th grader, and the teacher said, today we're going to do division. You know, it's math, we're going to do division. Typically, the reaction's not going to be super favorable. Don't get me wrong, there's some children that love math and love numeracy and probably be very much in tune with doing division. But if the teacher, instead of even mentioning the word division, instead said, we're going to grab that bag of basketballs and we're going to go out to the courts and we're going to shoot, everyone's going to shoot baskets. You're going to pair up and everyone's going to get a diagram of the court and take 10 shots from anywhere you feel comfortable from. And I want your partner to mark your makes and your misses. And when you're all done, everyone's going to come back inside and we're going to go through another worksheet, and everyone's going to get to figure out their field goal percentage, just like, for an example, LeBron James or insert player from that area. And the kids will generally, they typically get pretty excited because you're asking them to play. And all the while you're able to instill some education in there. And so they're going to work on some math. And guess what they're going to do? Division. So it's a little bit of, and it's quite acceptable in the education system, disguised or stealth learning, where you're perpetuating something else, but there's an education and there's an objective, obviously, that comes from the activity. And so that's I would say for the majority, that's what we do. But there's active learning all the while where the students are actually leading their learning and their education with the teacher's finesse and help alongside. That's one thing, you know, that's one way to look at how we implement. We also like to say that we try to answer that age-old question of that a student often says, why do I have to learn this? Well, if you can relate it to sports, but if you can also relate it to an occupation, in our case, we use the optics of sports and explain that to children, then they might make a breakthrough and understand a career path at an earlier age, which would make their education more relevant and important to them. It's not about me, but boy, that would have worked really well for me. I wound up working in sports for a good 20 years, but I actually didn't figure out that as a path until about 3 months before graduating college. If I had equated some of my learning earlier to work in sports, boy, I think I probably would have been a better student. I wasn't that great. And I think my education would have been more meaningful and more tangible, I think is the best way to put it, so that I could actually see where I was heading. So we try to answer that question. Why do I have to learn this? Why do I have to learn geometry and angles, for an example, a child might say? And if you can then maybe incorporate angles in soccer and shooting on goal, and actually go through the exercise of that and show them that, you know, perhaps, you know, standing right at the goal in the middle and shooting on at the goalkeeper is not the best angle. It could be a better angle, especially depending on what foot they shoot with. Those are the types of things that we try to break down. And so that's just another simple example. Some of the results, as you can see up here, were taken from last year. This actually happens to be based on our Volume 1 edition. We've now launched Volume 2. So all of our curriculum has been updated fairly. I can tell you that our curriculum, I would give Volume 1 kind of a B average, maybe B plus in some cases. And some of the things that were weak, if you will, have definitely been improved with regards to our volume 2. I also, as I asked Lee earlier, what grades do we hit? These are the grades we hit. 3 through 5, 6-8 are actually all contained in the same teacher's manual. And as I mentioned earlier before, we have a K-2 curriculum also now in a multi-sport. The kids will not be playing basketball and shooting on a 10-foot hoop, obviously, but it's more about the fundamentals of the sport, spatial awareness, some movements, obviously, and they'll capture some science around those movements. Who teaches the curriculum? So as I mentioned before, we're in classrooms, we're in after-school programs, and we're in camps. I don't want to say like anyone could, but most of us listening in most likely pick up one of our lessons and teach it. As you see on the right-hand side of the screen, our sequence of lesson it follows what's called 5E, which has become a very common, certainly in science, methodology of laying out a lesson, laying out the learning. We actually added a 6th E called extend. Maybe here in the States that we recognize as extra credit, or just have a little more development and finishing of a lesson's objective. So engage, explore, explain, elaborate, evaluate, and extend there at the end. So the steps are very interactive. They don't require a lecture per se. It's an active learning method for the students. And I think one of the things we haven't totally captured here today is what have we done to pivot. So yeah, we were very much a hands-on method of learning. And so with children out of the classroom, this became a challenge that we had to take on. We're kind of an analog company is the best way to put it. So when we take an order and we deliver it to a school, we're physically delivering a teacher's manual. We're not sending digitally our curricula. We really want to make sure that there is a break from the screen, typically. Break from the screen, there's a lot of opportunities to go on the field or court of play to teach. And so we wanted to not be the tablet or the laptop, we wanted to kind of break that marriage a little bit so that we have more play and more physical activity. Side note, also, it's our IP, so we're not quite ready to actually launch it digitally over the airwaves. We want to make sure we have our arms around it still. To accomplish virtual and distance learning, what we've done over the summer is we actually created PowerPoint presentations for every single lesson. So not an easy task, but we went through and we created a very attractive way for the student on if they're at home and they're at their dining room desk, if you will. We wanted them to have something attractive to follow the lesson plan. So we made those there's one screenshot here that you can see that makes it attractive and still works in the digital space with the video elements. We also digitized all the worksheets that go along with every lesson, which are contained in that printed manual. So we wanted to make sure we created as much ease for teachers and administrators because they're challenged right now. Obviously, they're dealing with curriculum that wasn't designed to even be taught remotely or in a virtual setting. So we had to make those pivots to make that applicable. And it's working. We're getting great results from that. Skyhawks, our partner that I mentioned earlier, has been implementing. And while I mentioned they're in 25 states, when you kind of pivot to virtual, you can make a case that they're now available in 50 states. I mean, no one wants a pandemic, trust me. But if you can paint a positive piece, that would be one of them that you can kind of expand your reach in that virtual space where you may not have been there before. And then, as I mentioned before, this is what it's all about. This is really simple. If you see in this lower right-hand corner of the page there, we've been told by teachers numerous times, oh gosh, this is the best thing you could have done because, again, it goes back to that question of why do I have to learn this? So now we can say, well, here's some reasons why. The objective of this lesson actually lays itself out to being in these types of roles. It can be the team doctor, the nutritionist, etc. And so I think when kids identify that, their learning and their attention and just their buy-in is vastly improved. And especially you can speak to the students that think that they're going to be a professional athlete one day. And I would never tell you to tell them that's not going to happen. But what happens when their career is over? What happens if they suffer a devastating injury that causes their career to end prematurely? They have to have a backup plan. And so, or a real plan for when they're done. So there's opportunities to work in the sport that they love and that they're passionate about. And it may not be on the pitch, it may not be on the court. It might very well be on the sideline, which is a great way to earn a living and create a great career and make a big difference. So we put 5 little jobs in there, and our teachers have told us, oh, Jeff, we've spent classroom periods on that discussion point. And we project out of that, okay, what other jobs these are just a handful. So if you're learning about angles and soccer and shooting on goal, well, how's that parlay itself into a job? Well, engineering, you might be able to be a stadium builder or an architect. You can certainly be a coach. That parlays itself too. So there's lots of opportunities that are built around it. And that's one of the most important changes that we've implemented for our volume 2 that has been very impactful. So I think that's probably the gist of what I wanted to make sure I got out there. We're available for more information at stemsports.com. And like I said, not only are we just in the States domestically, but we're still starting to grow outwardly and internationally.
Great, fantastic. Yeah, you touched on the obviously the COVID pandemic and the virtual education, Jeff. And you know, what we've found is that just try and get up the screen.
Oh yeah, let me jump off now. I'm sorry.
Yes. So basically, you know, as I mentioned, you know, our programs are face-to-face. We're working communities and schools with the teachers, the community coaches, the youth, you know, working at the grassroots level. And we haven't been able to do that. We haven't been able to run our train-the-trainer programs. Programs have been paralyzed. We haven't been able to conduct our monitoring evaluation on site. As I've just put up there, you know, these are our blended learning solutions. These are the education through sports development modules. This one here is all about passing the ball between each other and introducing each other so that everyone is friends, everyone gets to know each other. Just give you, hang on, just give you some more. This one, yeah, this one is stealing balls, where, you know, students have, the whole message around this is that you have to grasp the opportunity to go to school, grasping the balls, you know, opportunities to go to school. So this is how we run our programs at the grassroots level. My way, you know, the students have the option to decide which route they would like to go with the ball. Do they go left? Do they go right? And the message is that all boys and girls have the right to choose. This one is Identities, which is a program which a module whereby it shows that every boy and girl has an identity as they're passing the ball around together. This is Edu Levels, where you see the cones in green, orange, and red. Each color is a school level, so elementary, middle, senior school, and this basically, yeah, the message is that every boy and girl has the right to go to school and continue their education to the next level. So you can see the way we work. And, you know, obviously we haven't been able to do that. Just get this up. Yeah, just go back. So, you know, this is a slide that I put up earlier, and I just want to go back to this now. You know, for our Rhythm Foundation program, which is a health, hygiene, sanitation program, then, you know, we haven't been able to run this program in schools. So what we did is we put together and designed a virtual education program, which is a COVID-19 prevention platform. It's a digital online. education solution, which our students are using. We've got over 10,000 students using it. It's on the YouTube. So we've got them using it in communities with their families on a regular basis. And we're conducting all the monitoring and evaluation with the families because we can't go into the schools and run our health and nutrition program and hygiene awareness and sanitation. So this is, we've become a creative and we've designed this program, this digital learning program, which is going really well. And obviously it educates them on important hygiene, awareness, and it's designed to save lives. For our Caterpillar Foundation program, we haven't been able to run our financial literacy and numeracy workshops in schools. So we've developed an empowerment booklet for the kids to use in their homes, in their communities, with their families. So they're learning financial literacy and numeracy education through sports activities at home. And we're conducting all the monitoring and evaluation with families online with them. So yeah, it's been very challenging. And our US Embassy program in Sihanoukville in Cambodia, we couldn't conduct our final monitoring evaluation face-to-face. So we did everything digitally. So we were doing online testing, video-based interviews, surveys. So yeah, we're doing the best we can. It's obviously not ideal because we're not going face-to-face, but we found ways around it. We've got a new FIFA Foundation program coming up, which is another prevention of violence against women and girls in Tangerang in Indonesia. It's going to be train-the-trainer based, again, working with local teachers and community coaches. But we're obviously looking at using Zoom to set up virtual train-the-trainer programs to work with our beneficiaries that way. So yeah, we're finding ways around it to mitigate the issues surrounding COVID-19. And I think we're getting towards the end now, Jeff, aren't we?
Yep, I think we do need to kind of slowly wrap it. I don't know if there's, I've not seen any questions pop up in chat, but if there are any questions, we can certainly take them, or we can certainly unmute.
Hopefully. Yeah, so the way we see, next year developing, obviously, we've still got COVID there. The pandemic is severely affecting a lot of countries. Indonesia is not coping very well with the pandemic, and schools are still closed, whereas some of our other target countries, such as Thailand and Malaysia, are handling the situation a lot better, and some schools are opening. So yeah, in some of the countries, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, that we can hold our face-to-face, grassroots-based train-the-trainer programs in, say, Thailand or Malaysia. But in the case of, say, Indonesia, Philippines, we're going to have to go along more the virtual education route and hold Zoom forums for our teachers and community coaches. And, we'd really like to promote our and develop our COVID-19 prevention learning platform, not just across Indonesia, but also globally as well. I've had discussions in Pakistan, India, and Brazil, where I am at the moment, about launching the COVID-19 digital learning platform.
Great. Yeah, and if anyone else, like I said, for me, in STEM Sports, we're found at stemsports.com. And I think with that, we'll wrap it up.
Great. Well,
thanks so much, Lee.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jeff. Take care there, and let's keep in touch. And
more information coming your way.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks a lot. Take care.
Bye now.